Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Money Talk with Melanie, and albeit very late episode of Money Talk with Melanie. I'm so sorry. When I opened the show about 15 minutes ago, there was no sound, and it turns out that a key component to being on the radio is to actually be able to hear it. So I thought... I feel like you guys like to hear like what's going on the radio. So anyway, welcome all of you in High Plains Pundit Talk Radio land and SHR Media land, and all of you on Facebook who are piling into the chat. Welcome. So happy to have you here today. Todd Kittner said it's a good point. I think it was the point about the sound. Yeah, we're gonna skip the whole intro thing since I basically have blown that. My guest today is Kiril Ravensong, who is with Bitshares, and we're going to talk about what in the world is going on with the volatility in the crypto market. I thought you all might be interested, as am I. Ralph J. Chittum Sr., welcome. So happy to have you. Mike, Todd, Carrie, hello. People that I missed, I'm sorry, Charlie. But the crypto market has obviously been very volatile lately, and I thought I would get one of my local experts on the show, Kiril Ravensong. And without further ado, Kiril, how are you, darling?
I'm doing great, Melanie. How are you?
I'm hanging in there.
Thanks for having me back on.
Listen, and thank you for your patience. I appreciate it. So, Senator Ted Harvey is here. Ron Edwards is here. Well, hello and welcome. Hi, Doug. Doug is here as well. So let's get right into it since I missed the first break and everything. And let's talk a little bit about what has been going on in the market, as in the crypto market specifically. As you and I discussed before we got on the air, I was talking about how my little teeny tiny account was down like 40%, but that I got in late and things like that. And so I guess I wanted to start off with maybe explaining a little bit of the history of cryptocurrency and then where it is now.
Sure. So the first thing is when people get kind of upset, just remember that dips in price of like 20 to 30% is news. Like, people get really attentive, and usually bad news gets remembered more than good news. So it's easy to forget that if you look at the whole year, Bitcoin, as one metric, is up about 888%.
And that's for the year? For the year.
If you look at the month, it's down about 13%. But it had a real dip around, earlier this month. It hit a low, which is still pretty darn high, of just a little bit better than 6,000 around the 7th of February.
Sure. So now, if you were a person who, just like any type of long-term investment, if you're a person who got in, say, 6 months ago or even a year ago, your account's going to be doing much better than somebody who got in a month ago.
Yeah, but even a month ago during the dip, you're still going to do better if you look at the longer-term picture again. And you won't see the same huge increases that you did see in Bitcoin at the beginning than you would if you invested in some of the other coins. Like someone who invested in Ethereum, like a year ago, or even a month ago, you won't quite see the same. But a year ago, you'd also see this incredible surge. It's right now almost $1,000. It's like about $900. So if you got into Ethereum a year ago, again, you would see this huge increase.
Now, I think that's a great explanation and a great point. It's kind of like any IPO, like when it first hits, right? The market, there's always kind of this tremendous, when Facebook first hit the market, when Twitter first hit the market. Actually, I think Twitter was one of the ones that was kind of an epic fail. When it first now that I'm recalling, I think when Twitter first came out, like they thought it was going to do really well, but then like didn't. But that kind of usually happens. Now, I don't feel like we've seen that in the same, like with cryptocurrency. It seems like it's been a bit more extreme. Is that my imagination?
Well, there's no usual anymore. I mean, that much I can definitely tell you. There's a new normal, and it's volatile, it's unpredictable, and it's changing. Good example would be of a new normal would be Uber or Lyft. You know, if someone told you 2 or 3 years ago that one of the leaders in car services did not own a single automobile, you'd look at me like my head was on strange.
True.
If you look at Amazon, right? Amazon was running at a loss for years. I think it might have been like 6 or 7 years that Amazon ran at a loss before it finally started to turn profit. And now it's this behemoth that's buying up Whole Foods. So we have to re-examine our old assumptions about how business is going to function coming into this new millennium.
That makes a lot of sense. And I mean, now the head of Amazon is like considered a genius. He's the richest man in the world, if I'm not mistaken.
Look at that.
Yeah. So Amazon is actually a great example. So I want to make sure that I make this distinction, and you can help my audience with this, because, you know, I'm saying cryptocurrency, and I think most people, when they hear cryptocurrency, they think it's synonymous with Bitcoin. Can you explain whether or not it's synonymous, what's Bitcoin, what's crypto?
No. It's pseudo-anonymous. And there's a big difference between the two. So I would say that when people think anonymous, that it is one of the ideals originally pitched by some of the cypherpunks when they envisioned digital money. And that's a whole different philosophy, the power of anonymous money. And, you know, there are companies looking to develop that. There are even apps that might allow for that in the coming future. Monero comes up in relation to that. But to speak right now is that we're talking about pseudo-anonymous. And that means that you can be tracked. You can be, if you commit crimes using cryptocurrency, it's actually, in a certain sense, easier to find you than if you're money laundering through the banking system, right? Through cash and through other fronts. So do remember that you can be tracked by your IP address. Once your identity has become linked with any set of accounts, even crypto wallets, those can be tracked back to you. So, you know, you have to remember that distinction between the two. Pseudo-anonymous, which allows you to craft a unique identity that's still persistent, and completely anonymous, which means it has no tie to your legal identity whatsoever. It's a completely self-sufficient digital identity.
Exactly. And I think that's where most people where the confusion comes in for a lot of people, is the fact that, you know, cryptocurrency is a digital currency. It's not, you know, it's not like you can hand somebody a $5 bill or something like that. Like, you don't exchange it that way. It's literally, you know, a technology, you know, based on the blockchain. So, and I think that's what makes the concept kind of hard to grasp. And I do want to definitely ask you this question, because I've heard people, crypto naysayers, and I'll be frank, I'm still on the fence, say, you know, it really is futures trading and it's imaginary. You know, it's not like, well, you know, our currency is not backed with gold anymore anyway, but they're like, why would you, you know, I've heard people say, well, why would you not invest in metals or, you know, the S&P, which is, I think, generally not a bad investment. What do you think about that? And what would you say about that?
I mean, I'm not into crypto for the investment side. So there is that, right? If you want an investment, you could do very well with the S&P 500. I know a number of people who advise that for your baseline conservative investment. I know personally a few people who deal with gold exclusively. I've noticed a lot of pretty high-end companies investing in gold, right? We're talking about businesses investing in gold just in case of market collapse. Physical gold, right?
Right.
Right. So these are all perfectly valid options. I don't want to diminish them. I don't want to present myself as an expert trader or someone giving financial or legal advice.
Sure.
So I do have to acknowledge that those are perfectly fine vehicles. Right now, the reason, in my opinion, and many others that I talk to, for the volatility in cryptocurrency is that there's still so much speculation involved. Okay, so that it's like, when you see these huge gains, it's just inevitable that a certain body of people who made those gains are going to sell them off and cash out, right?
I want you to say that
spikes and drops.
I want you to say that one more time. Back up. and say that, because that's an important point. And I think when people see the value of a stock drop, that they don't understand what you just said. So say that again.
Sure. So we can really, in my opinion, and in some of the opinions of others, and I get a lot of my research, if not directly from people who are in the space, from Steemit. There are a few names there that are just brilliant, but it's largely speculation, right? So when you have speculators who don't really care about the market, they're not using the utility of any of the tokens, they're just looking for a good deal. The moment they get a big enough return on investment, it's just logical to recognize that they cash out. They're not trying to hold on for dear life. They put money in at a certain amount. When it soars up enough, they sell. And when enough people sell at a high enough point, you'll see a natural justification in the value of the asset.
Now, and that makes a whole lot of sense. And I think, and the reason why I said it is because, to be quite honest with you, I had kind of forgotten it. Oh yeah, well that's how it drops, because people are taking their profits. Like, profit taking is what causes the market to drop, ironically.
Right.
So
it's inevitable, right? And you'll see, Chinese New Year, people were selling off, in order to buy presents. You'll see around tax time, people selling off to pay their taxes. If a major geopolitical event happens, like India freezes all the crypto assets, that's a huge marketplace. Like, India is probably one of the largest marketplaces for crypto that's very rarely talked about. And when a nation makes a decision, it makes a huge impact in how the speculators respond.
That makes a lot of sense. So, I mean, it is speculative for sure. And because it is, I mean, it's not brand new, but compared to, your regular, S&P and New York Stock Exchange and all that, it's brand spanking new, only 10 years old. So there really isn't necessarily, unless you feel free to correct me, necessarily a, sound economic patterns to follow as we do with the market. I mean, people who are professionals who are running your 401ks and your portfolios are generally using some sound economic principles in order to invest your money. Do we have anything like that for the crypto market?
There are analysts for the crypto market. They use the same analytics that you use for the standard market. It just takes a certain amount of data in order to create recognition of patterns. And you do have to remember, most importantly, that cryptocurrency has not yet achieved early adopter phase. We're still pre-early adopter. And because of that, that's why it's still, even for Bitcoin, as well as for many of the altcoins, it's still a viable time to get in. Some of the cryptocurrencies that I'm looking at that I really like, they're still pennies for the dollar or a few dollars. So they're still really good buys.
Okay, so in other words, it's still in such an early phase. I want to make sure that I understand what you're saying. It's still in its infancy, really, as far as investing is concerned.
Even before, we're not even at infancy. We're literally in naissance. You remember, like, the internet took about 10 years before it was ready for some form of public consumption. And even then, very specific applications had to be formed in order to help people to use it. Email being one of the first things. You got mail, right? That was one of the first things people used the internet for. But previous to that, you're talking about a space where scientists could post raw data and look at that data in a multidisciplinary approach. That's not what most people use it for today.
That makes sense. Let me ask you about the blockchain. And I always, I always feel like we need to make sure that we are connecting the dots, because cryptocurrency is such a new thing. And again, I feel like the blockchain and cryptocurrency is one of those things that you hear people using synonymously. And again, they're not the same thing.
Nope.
So if you could elaborate on, like, what the difference is between the blockchain and cryptocurrency and actually how it is that they relate.
All right, so I would actually start with the internet, because that's the foundation, right? So if the internet is the spinal column, right, of human being, the large human body, then the blockchain is the nervous system that radiates out and runs up that spine. And it really does allow for what I call Internet 2.0 or even Internet 3.0. And it's a huge evolution of the same existing infrastructure that we have that allows people to transmit not just information, but ownership or value or even money, but many other things as well over the internet infrastructure. Now, if you look at cryptocurrency, it's merely a test case of how the blockchain can be applied, not unlike how internet gave birth to email as an expression of how it could be used, but the internet itself had many more uses and applications than just email.
Right, just like the blockchain does.
Just like the blockchain has a myriad. I mean, one interesting one that I've been looking at is that it's now possible to create land deeds anywhere in the world and put them on the blockchain. And that has enormous implications based on the work of Hernandez de Soto, who did a lot of work in Peru, showing miraculous results of what happened when farmers and renters who've been on a certain plot of land for maybe 10 generations but never had ownership, when they finally got that ownership, it re-galvanized the whole socioeconomic platform. People were very empowered to the degree that antagonists and terrorists were running to the government for protection. So there are huge implications for this in the larger marketplace.
And that makes a lot of sense. And you're starting to hear a lot of the, if you're a finance geek like me and you're listening to some of the business shows, you're starting to hear about new companies that are coming out that are really focused on revolutionizing different ways that you use the blockchain.
Oh yes.
So
especially when you look at it like this, like we've got 2.5 people roughly who have bank accounts, and we have roughly 5 billion people who don't have bank accounts, but they have cell phones. Right? You just start thinking about it. With that smartphone, that additional those 5 billion can be engaging in commerce through the blockchain. The blockchain has that type of power to create and store independent but yet confirmable ledgers that allow for all sorts of functions to occur that really level the playing field if it is allowed to exist as intended, as an open source platform rather than something that is under the sole discretionary control over, say, the centralized banking system. So there's a big battle that's being waged right there in that particular space.
Indeed. And that's actually a perfect segue into my next question, because I heard in a press conference about 6 months ago, and it was kind of like really glossed over. It was actually the White House presser. And I think Bitcoin had just had a big boom, and somebody asked, one of the reporters asked, like what the White House was thinking about as far as regulating the cryptocurrency market. Like were they thinking about it? Were they planning on regulating it? Because some people are big regulators. They're big into a lot of regulations, and I just feel like the crypto market is kind of like, the beauty of it is that it's not. Kind of.
I mean, point blank, right? If you regulate too soon, you destroy innovation. Right now, to occupy, to legally engage the blockchain space, it is expensive, right? Because I've seen this now firsthand, just how quickly, if you enter into certain regulatory fields, like the banking field, the banking industry, there's a huge demand for those who are in crypto to have some sort of mechanism that allows them to cash out more quickly. And there was BitInstant, which was a perfectly viable expression, really brilliant idea. That person, I think, saw a few years in jail, right? Then you have the actual behavior of some of the regulatory bodies. The SEC, in my opinion, is somewhat notorious. We don't often discuss this, but the SEC, just by accusing someone, can freeze their assets, which makes it almost impossible to retain legal counsel.
Absolutely.
It can leave damages to your reputation to the degree that you might find it hard to travel. And if you made some political faux pas, like, I don't know, breaking Pizzagate or something very unpopular, you could find yourself charged by the SEC and get all of those negative results, even if you're completely innocent. That is unacceptable. It's something that must be recognized as something that's an overextension of regulation, and maybe even politically motivated, right?
No, are you saying that our government would actually use our regulatory agencies in a political way? No.
You're right. You're right, Melanie. I have to let me take off the tinfoil hat. That's a little excessive, but you're right. I have to retract the statement. That would never happen.
No. No one would ever politicize anything like that.
On the other hand, to be fair, if you don't regulate at all, what you'll get is a mess. You'll get so much noise and so much, disruptive, that you'll have people who are unprepared for their surges in wealth and power and influence, that it can go to their heads pretty quickly. So in order to get the balance between the two, it certainly makes sense that the industry of blockchain becomes self-regulating as soon as possible. That's my biggest advice to those who are currently developing blockchain technology and applications, that we as a group step up our game, that we become stronger leaders with higher ethics, and we take more time to give free education, that we freely go out and we inform people about what's happening so they can know what's going on from an insider's perspective.
That makes a lot of sense. Let me I want to tell you about two comments that are in the Facebook chat. Doug says that Walmart used blockchain to find tainted food in seconds. So had you heard that?
Yeah, I think it's awesome. I mean, that's an example. Yeah, we're going to see a lot of things like that in relation to food, for sure. And we're going to see that in terms of fair trade, like cotton, for example, or various other cloths that come all too often out of sweatshop labor and slave labor. Blockchain can help to eliminate that.
That's amazing. That is truly incredible. Now, and Greg Wilson in the chat asked a question. He said, aren't banks blocking their customers from investing in Bitcoin just as they do with gambling sites?
Well, I mean, the recent blockage from the banks was in relation to their credit cards. They shut down pretty universally, most of the big banks, to use your credit card to buy crypto. So there's that. And then on the other hand, right now, as far as the banks consider, cryptocurrency is this open, free-range thing that they don't control, so they don't have any particular vested interest. There's not strictly a value add for them to support their customers engaging in it yet.
I feel like it's almost like, I feel like it's the same reason why the government doesn't, for the most part, allow prostitution to be legal. They have not figured out a way to monetize it. Because if they figured out a way to like really make money off of it, I feel like they would make it legal, just like anything else.
I mean, there are lots of ways that you can legalize it, and by legalizing it, create licensing and taxable revenue. It's just there are two parts to this.
But it's so icky, right? Like just the thought of that is icky.
Well, the thing is like we've learned our lessons, right, Melanie, about prohibition, right? Prohibition doesn't work. It just doesn't. Right. So we need to, I look at the legalization of marijuana and thereby industrial hemp. Personally, I'm a huge advocate for it. That doesn't mean I advocate the smoking of marijuana. I just advocate it being legalized across the board to take it out of the worry and concern of law enforcement and to put it into the hands of the medical community, right? Because I believe it's a health issue, not a law enforcement issue. Same with cryptocurrency. I would much rather have the applications of cryptocurrency regulated by experts in the various fields where that application expresses itself. So if there's some sort of financial futures that's developed on the blockchain, I would love to have a security specialist overlook that and work in a multidisciplinary fashion with blockchain coders and other developers to create functionality that matches the environment that we all want to do business in.
That's a great point. I don't know if he's still in there, but we do have a cybersecurity expert, and it's actually a couple. Greg Wilson's a cybersecurity expert, and Mike Fitzpatrick, who's also in the chat there. I should have tagged Greg. Sorry, Greg, should have tagged you. But I did tag Mike. We're going to go to a quick commercial break. We'll be back in a few minutes. I want to ask you specifically about the security aspects of cryptocurrency when we get on the other side of the break, because that, the more people are getting, the more you hear about these large companies that have been hacked and these large payouts as a result. I'd really like to talk about that.
Awesome.
Okay. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette. My guest today is Kiril Ravensong with Bitshares, and we are talking about what is going on in the cryptocurrency market with its volatility. Should we be scared? Should we not be scared? That type of thing. But we will be back on the other side of the break to talk about security in cryptocurrency. We'll be right back.
Sponsored by the Tri-County Liberty Coalition. Gun control advocates like Gerardo Rivera said that removing firearms will stop events like the recent shootings in Florida from happening. Hello, I'm Ron Edwards. On today's page from the editor's notebook, is Gerardo Rivera out of his banana republic mind? If gun control prevented horrific events like the shootings in Florida, remember Virginia Tech, or every day in the ghettos of Cleveland and Chicago, then those would be the safest places on earth because of heavy gun restrictions. No, my fellow Americans, the underlying problem is a lack of proper moral instruction and shaming of evildoers who seek to bring harm to sovereign individuals. Another problem is the media's general omission of the Florida murderers' affiliation and attachment to leftist hate-filled organizations like CARE and Antifa. When children are not given a foundation of a more righteous standard, then very often they will adopt the mindset of the left, which entails a lack of self-control, hatred of that which is good, and a desire to lash out at others and bring about destruction. If taking the weapons away from law-abiding citizens ended indiscriminate violence, then there would not be a massive stabbing epidemic in gun-free London, England. I'm Ron Edwards. Blowing away the myths and revealing the truth. You can continue to blow away the myths with Ron Edwards on Facebook, Twitter, and theronedwards.com. Sponsored by the Tri-County Liberty Coalition.
Ron Edwards, the new voice of America. Who likes paying taxes? Nobody. That's why Eva Rosenberg from TaxMama.com wants you to pay less of them. Read Small Business Taxes Made Easy and learn how legally hiring your spouse and children can slash your taxes. Learn how to set up a business plan that minimizes taxes, the benefits of setting up an exit plan, how to avoid getting audited, and how to legally increase your deductible expenses with better record-keeping techniques. Don't let the IRS squeeze you out of every penny. Visit TaxMama.com. Click on Ask a Tax Question to get free answers to your tax and business questions. That's TaxMama.com.
My name is David Barnett, and I've been helping people buy and sell small and medium-sized businesses since 2008. So far this year, I've gone on 5 vacations. It's because I've got my own business. When you get tired of being managed by someone else and you decide that business ownership is right for you without the risk of starting your own unproven enterprise, then come over to BusinessBuyerAdvantage.com. There are over 100 YouTube videos on buying and selling businesses that you can watch for free. That's BusinessBuyerAdvantage.com.
Welcome to this week's Money Talk Minute with your business diva, Melanie Collette. This week's talk is how to save for retirement. Number 1, start saving now, and that means today, because money you put in your retirement fund now will have more time to grow. Number 2, avoid withdrawing money from your retirement fund at all costs. The financial impact of doing so will hurt you many times over. There's a huge penalty and a tax bill on the money you withdraw. 3, take advantage of the 401k match. This is when your employer contributes money by matching what you put into your retirement account. And that's all for this week's Money Talk Minute. I am your business diva, Melanie Collette. Please remember to listen and watch Money Talk with Melanie Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Western on SHR Media, High Plains Pundit Talk Radio, and on Facebook Live. Have a great day. Welcome back. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette. My guest today is the one and only Kiril Ravensong. He is a repeat guest here on the show. He is with Bitshares, and he is just sharing with us a bit of his wisdom in regard to the volatility in the cryptocurrency market. And I'm very glad to have him with us today. So before the break, Kiril, I asked about the security with cryptocurrency. Many, the headlines are kind of big these days about, these big settlements that crypto companies are involved in. Apparently, there's, I've had some people scheduled to come on and they couldn't come on because they may have had some FCC issues. So I would love for you to talk to us a little bit about yes, that's
sure.
actually happened. I'd love for you to talk to us a little bit about that.
Of course, and do be fair, like the Christopher Giancarlo, remember, of the CFTC, has taken the stance of do no harm approach. So a big shout out to him for a reasonable and somewhat enlightened perspective to regulation. So there are good guys, there are white hats everywhere.
Indeed.
Just to remember that. Yeah, in terms of cybersecurity, all right, so do remember, because of the nature of how much is done on the internet and done digitally these days, the likelihood of cyber security breaches are going up. There is this principle of the honeypot. Whenever there is a centralized system where there's tons of valuable data, and remember, the data can be all sorts of things. It can be personal identifiable information, known as PII. It can be intellectual property, financial data, health records, anything that's highly profitable to have access to. A good example was the SEC itself was hacked. And for over a year, it's likely that people might have used that information for insider trading.
No.
So whenever you,
no.
So same with the PII. People sell that data, right? So, so when you're looking at that, the natural question is, well, what do we do about it, right? So blockchain technology does have some really key factors built in, right? It has this whole trust protocol that doesn't require a third party. That's a huge factor. That means that there's a network consensus about data. And to render that in super simple layman's terms, it means that you would have to hack the entire network and all of those various drivers and corrupt all of those blocks of information, at least more than half of them, in order to create a consensus to hack. Whereas if the information is centralized, you just have to keep at it before you find a way in. I know one of the telephone companies, I won't mention which one, got in a lot of trouble because they had a certain human factor where hackers would just call again and again and again until they found someone nice enough to just help them switch their phone number, and they use that as an in combined with other personal information to steal people's crypto wallets.
Yes, I have a cybersecurity expert, and he is in the chat. I just saw him comment, Michael Fitzpatrick, who talks about that as a component of security. That human factor people don't think of often. Often companies don't consider. That a lot of times that's how people get in.
That's right. So it's the social hack, and by and large, I forget which study, I forget which university did the study, but there was a certain discovery that said that only about 1 in 10 employees even knew what the cybersecurity protocols were. Right. So there's no question, if you don't know what they are, it's very unlikely that you'll follow them. Even the Pentagon has gotten in trouble for this. People sending private emails from secure servers. That's a no-no, right? So that's the human element right there. The decentralized storage is huge, and as is traceability. So the idea is that you can, if someone can't verify, if the whole idea is if you can verify your identity in a way that is decentralized and stable, it opens a whole new doorway to eliminating people trying to pretend that they're you, or convince you to do things that are outside the normal protocols. So blockchain definitely is here to stay. If it proves only one thing, it's that that's accessible. And then the final final part I'll say is that you will see fairly soon that people will start using encrypted devices, because in order to maintain true cybersecurity, you would need to have it from the very start. That means encrypted phones, encrypted computers. Already there are a bunch of chats that are very well encrypted. They're not perfect, but these are kind of your first rounds of defense in order to protect yourself.
That makes a whole lot of sense. It seems like a lot, but that's why I feel like that's why you many times, research and find a reputable company to help you with this, the same way you would any financial advisor.
In a sense, although there will come the realization that there are certain things that you can't outsource, right? You can't really outsource health insurance.
Right.
There really isn't a good scenario where you'll find a private sector company can do a better job than, say, a co-op version of the very same activity, because there are just certain things you can't outsource. Cybersecurity is one of them. So your knowledge in how to protect yourself is very important. In other words, it's much simpler, much more direct to teach everyone how to defend their information than it is to try to write code or rules that protect the ignorant.
Right. That's true, because the ignorance is vast, and not necessarily in a negative way, just ignorant in terms of just people not knowing.
Right. I mean, if you don't even know, right? There's no crime in it. It's just very painful, right? So you have people who are working for large companies, and because they themselves in their own life, they're on Facebook and they broadcast all their information. Their cameras on their phones and their devices are always on. They don't even cover them with a sticker. If they're so porous and so transparent with their metadata, what's the likelihood that they're going to protect your data?
Oh, wow. Like, you just killed us with logic real quick. I mean, that just makes a lot of sense. That just makes a whole lot of sense. So let me ask you about something. It's security with cryptocurrency, but a little bit off the beaten path. EMPs. Like, I think that we know that there are foreign agents that have the ability, right, to send these electronic pulses and really mess us up. And are cryptocurrencies automatically, because of their nature, protected from that, or no? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, so just to let everyone kind of really assimilate to what that might look like, where blockchain has resiliency towards a catastrophic event, which isn't necessarily a terrorist attack too. It could be a massive enough solar flare could create the same effect. And what that would be is your devices no longer work. Big transition towers and high tension wires and energy delivery, automobiles, a lot of things would suddenly not work. You would very quickly realize that you need electricity in order to get the electricity back on, which is an oversight to our current system. Very quickly, you would be in a very rough place if it was a global phenomenon.
Right.
If it's localized to just a nation, well, that's where cryptocurrency and blockchain has a lot of resiliency, because there'd still be data centers stored. There's also the idea of I forget what it's called. They're reinforced, and there are all sorts of different models that could protect the data. There are all sorts of different versions, but the important lesson, I think, to take away from this is just to remember, because people forget this, the only system that has proven itself over the long haul time frame is the ecosystem. And even with that, it's not without extinction level events. So even the ecosystem periodically resets. So there's no such thing as perfect security or perfect stability. If people want to really protect their data in that way, hard copies, there's a certain mentality to keep hard copies of things, to keep hard assets with you, to keep a certain pile of cash, because cash is really king when the electricity is out. And the other thing to recognize is that as much as you have the soft survival skills, like gardening, how to network with your community, how to find water and basic survival skills, those are actually more relevant than they've ever been before because of the fragility and the high tension with our current electronic systems.
Wow. I have a lot of work to do. and my guess is I'm not the only one in my audience that's listening to this going, yeah, that would be a big, I mean, listen, Puerto Rico is going through this. There are still parts of Puerto Rico, and it's been like, what, 5-6 months? It's been a minute. It's been a while.
Yeah.
And they haven't had electricity.
And some of that is they haven't had electricity. And remember, it wasn't as if the Puerto Rican grid was the model of efficiency and well managed.
Of course.
Okay? So, there's so a lot of love to our brothers and sisters in Puerto Rico, and really encouragement to hang in there.
Indeed.
It's a tremendous reminder. It's a tremendous reminder that the real economy that's going to last is one that's based on caring. It's not going to be high-tech solutions, okay? It's going to be because we love one another. No joke. Like, we love one another. We care for one another. We get together in person. I find that our devices are divisive in their nature, that we spend too much time on social media and not enough time face-to-face. So there is a certain body of thought that says by unplugging a certain number of days each week or a number of weeks or months each year is completely healthy and is good preparation for the natural fluxes that you'll see in our digital environment.
That's certainly true. That's certainly true. I love what you said there. Let me ask you one more quick question to wrap up the show, and somehow tie in how we can get in touch with you in this answer. So, by and large, do you think that we're at a point with crypto where we should be afraid to invest because of the volatility, or no? What would you say about that? Like, if you were to give someone not necessarily financial advice and a tip, but what they should think about the volatility, whether or not they should be afraid.
All right. I give you my first gut honest response is, like I said, I'm not a speculator. I'm not in crypto to get rich. My deep passion and excitement, because there is plenty of opportunity to earn in crypto. But my personal deep passion is to help everyone rise up together. That gets me really juiced. That gets me excited. So, no, it's not too late. The volatility is actually what makes trading exciting. If you're a trader, I've heard this from traders themselves in the regular marketplace. The volatility is what makes it exciting. It's what makes it profitable, right? One advice, though, given from Warren Buffett himself: don't try to short the crypto market. You'll lose your shirt. That's a direct quote.
That is absolutely right. That is absolutely right. Great advice from Warren Buffett. He would know. How can we get in touch with you if we'd like to get involved with Bitshares, or somebody else would like to have you on their podcast? How can we get in touch?
Yeah, you can usually get through to me to my agent, but I'll give my email, KirilRavensong@gmail.com.
Yes, excellent.
And my agent, she's Nicole. She's just genius. And that's the best way to get in contact with me.
She's fantastic. It's the host that's difficult.
Yes.
at least in my case. No, Nicole is fantastic.
Melanie, it's really a pleasure. Keep up the good work. It's really important for people to recognize we haven't even entered early adopters. Still plenty of room. There's a lot of dead wood out in the crypto space, but there's a tremendous amount of treasure. So do your research and keep on keeping on.
Thank you so much, Kiril. I appreciate it so very much, and I hope you'll be back soon.
Anytime. It's a pleasure.
Pleasure's mine. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette. That was my guest, Kiril Ravensong from Bitshares. Just fantastic information on the volatility in the market, a little bit of information about the crypto security, which is very important. So I hope that you guys gleaned some great information. I thought he did a great job as usual. And I want to thank everybody in the Facebook chat. Lots of folks in the Facebook chat, lots of very well-informed people in the Facebook chat with great comments and great questions. You guys totally rock. I appreciate your support. All of you out there who are listening in HP Pundit, Talk Radio, and SHR Media Land, I appreciate you as well. Remember, all of this is very important because after all, it's your money. Have a great night.
Awesome.